Greetings and welcome. This is Junior English, and we are now ready to present an introduction to American transcendental thought as we get ready for the next series of readings. When you look at American thought, there are identifiable progressive marks, monuments of important thought, and we will see how those ideas, obviously expressed by important individuals, shape the way Americans think. We are at one of those moments right now. One of the beginning points is this question of what we will call views of human nature. All right? Views of human nature. And the way we often will represent this is to draw the words human nature on the board and then draw a line down the middle of the board. I know you've been introduced to this concept already. On the left-hand side, we'll see human nature as inherently bad, evil, sinful, we might say fallen, right? And this view of human nature will often associate with certain words. We'll call this a pessimistic view of human nature. We'll call this a view of human nature realistic. Realism often will be associated, the term often associated with it. Please understand, I'm speaking in gross generalities when I'm talking about this. Obviously, there's all kinds of debate about which side of the line people stand on, at what point they view this, etc., etc. But I'm now going to ask a simple question. From our readings, what individual most is representative of this worldview? Don't say it, write it. I'll give you a hint. His initials are this. J.E. Don't say it, write it. I'm interested in a single answer here. Do we have one thinker we've studied who best represents this Calvinist view? I gave you another hint. Do I have anyone who can give us the name? I'm ready to give plus points on our test sheet, but you can't look back in your book to find it. I'm looking for somebody that knows it. J.E. Who wrote a little ditty that we've already studied.
Oh, I know this.
That's going to present for us a certain kind of view of human nature that's not real happy, not real optimistic, definitely a pretty pessimistic view, definitely a view of Calvinist realism, we'll often call it. His name is...
Jonathan Edwards.
Yes! Well done! She did it! Well done! That a girl. We'll give you some points at the end of the hour on your test sheet. Yeah, now, there's a wonderful neurological question about how it is that Kretz finally pulled that one out of her neurological butt, right? But there it is for us. Nice job. She found it. Well done. That's it. John Edwards, right? John Edwards. Oh, what was the classic ditty? Write it down. What was the little title? Sinners in the hands of an angry God. That posits, of course, a smiling God sitting with people over the burning pits of hell, swinging the poor lowly sinners. They're holding on to their little rope, and he's got the scissors, smiling, you see. This is not the happiest of views. That's John Edwards, and to some degree, that is kind of an important moment in American thought early on. Okay? But there's another side to this view of the question regarding human nature, and now we are about to meet it in toto. Okay, we've been kind of seeing it coming, but now in American thought, we're ready to meet it in full. We'll begin by saying this is a view that sees humans as inherently good. We might even say divine, actually, okay? But the reason that humans seem to behave so badly is that humans are corrupted, okay, by a bad education or society. Remember, when we use the word education, we don't mean schooling. We mean everything that constitutes what children have been exposed to, etc. This argument is often identified not as pessimistic, but rather as optimistic. Okay? As not realism, but rather idealism. Okay? Idealism. All right? Now, the trajectory to get us here in terms of this view of human nature as inherently good, divine, comes with three important American thinkers. We sometimes call them the Holy Trinity of American transcendental thought. And they begin with a chap named Emerson, Ralph Waldo Emerson, to be precise. Followed by his student Thoreau, Thoreau. And finally, the great American poet Walt Whitman. Okay? Now, when we look at these three thinkers, taken collectively, we sometimes call them the great trinity of transcendental thought. We'll get to that word transcendentalism. By the way, we use that term, transcendentalism. For those of you that are giving me a look like, what is that word? That tells me you haven't looked very closely at your annotative reading yet. Page 360. What is the first word at the top of that page? Yeah, it's there, isn't it? Right? There's the word itself, transcendentalism. What does that word mean? We'll have more to say in a moment. Watch my whiteboard, though, and this will help you. The trajectory from John Edwards to get to transcendentalism looks something like this. It begins, first of all, with Ben Franklin. And, of course, we could say Tom Jefferson. Right? I mean, think about this. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of. See, that sounds pretty optimistic, doesn't it? Right? Sounds pretty optimistic. Okay. From here, the next major step is Longfellow. Tell me not in mournful numbers, life is but an empty dream, for the soul is dead that slumbers. Things are not what they seem. Life is real. Life is earnest. The grave is not its goal. Dust thou art, to dust returnest wasn't spoken of the soul. When you look at Psalm of Life, in this world's broad field of battle, in the bivouac of life, be not like dumb, driven cattle. Be a hero in the strife. I mean, that's an extremely optimistic view of the human existence. And to that degree, we could argue Longfellow is a precursor as well as American transcendental thought, as in a number of other thinkers. Bryant comes to mind, a number of others, right? Thanatopsis comes to mind. But when we're really ready to invest energy in this question of what is American transcendental thought, we're ready to start talking about Emerson, Thoreau, and Whitman. Okay? And that's kind of where we are now. Let's point out why this is so important. In the history of American thought, there is to use the Hegelian term, dialectic, a struggle, a back and forth between these two views. And one of them wins out. That's what makes our conversation so important. One of them wins out. And we know which one wins out. Okay? It is, in fact, the view of Emerson, Thoreau, Whitman, and that transcendental optimism. Students will often arrive in America from another country where they have lived all their life. Foreign exchange students are notorious for this. And they will often say about Americans, you people are different from the people I grew up around. What is it with you people and this optimism that you have? It's unbelievable. You watch the Olympics and the only ones you care about are your own people from America. It's as if you don't even know that there's other people that exist in the world doing sports. All you care about are these people. And even when you lose, you still try and spin it with optimistic views. What is that about you people thinking all the time you have to be number one? You actually are the better country than any other country in the world. And typically the answer is, well, we say we're the better country than any other country because we're the better country than any other country. I mean, really? You want to start playing stats here? Let's talk the Olympics and who kicks the butt of everybody. You see what I'm saying? Where does that kind of thing come from? That notion that America is exceptional. It's special. And Americans then by extension are special. We don't mean when we say that Americans don't have the same kind of DNA or blood in them. That's not what we mean. We're talking about a philosophic worldview that begins in earnest now with our three thinkers. That's why this is such a pivotal moment for us. We find ourselves saying, oh, this explains why, many years later, a little over 200, when I pick up John Edwards' Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God and read it, I kind of understand where he's headed, especially if I've been raised religiously. I kind of get it, but I will say, yeah, that's not a hopeful enough theological view for me. I like a little bit more optimism in my theology. Where does that come from? We've been heavily influenced by this debate, and you could make the argument, ultimately, this is the side that wins. So we want to pay particular attention to this moment in time, this moment in American thought. We want to identify the ways in which this is happening, and what does it mean? This term, transcendentalism. What does that term even mean? I'm now ready to erase the board and to take the next step. You'll want in your notes now to identify that's where we're headed. We are now going to go to an introduction to American transcendentalism. And the way I'm going to do it is to go back in time. If you drew a timeline on your paper, I won't do this now because I don't have a lot of time. If you drew a timeline, you would of course write that little line that says the birth of Christ. And then you would go back 399 years earlier to a chap named Socrates. Socrates. He is a Greek philosopher. He has a student named Plato. Now, that's not the stuff you played with when you were a kid and hopefully didn't eat too much of. That's different. That's Play-Doh. This is Plato. Plato has a concept that we want to meet called theory of the forms. Now, there are few ideas more important in the history of thought, especially in the history of Western thought, than this idea. So as we get ready to introduce this idea to you, you definitely want to sit up and really put on your thinking caps here, as we used to say when we were in first grade, because you want to pay particular attention to A, what is this idea, the theory of the forms, the Platonic theory of the forms, and then B, how does it influence so much of who we are in the West? Who is Socrates? Socrates is Plato's teacher. Socrates sits at the center of the mall. Are you familiar with those wretched places where people go shopping and all those shops and stores? And then in the middle of the really big ones, there's a fountain. Socrates sits at the center of that fountain at the mall. They didn't call it a mall, they called it the Agora. It's the same thing. Wretchedness. And there he sits, and he has these conversations with students, okay? And one of the important conversations that he has to do with the question for your notes, what is real? What is real? Another way to think about this is, what is life all about? You know what I mean when I say it that way, Miss Bird? What is life all about? Like, what's the point of life and all of that? Socrates has asked this question. Socrates, what is real? And he says, come on, get up, guys. It's all guys at this point. And he takes them into the bookstore. And he walks into the bookstore, and he has a sheet of paper, and he writes 2 boxes. And I always recommend that this is the way that you learn this theory of the forms. Above the first box, you're going to put the word images. Above the second box, you're going to put the word forms or concepts or ideas. And that's a really important word. You want to write down the word ideas there, okay? And what Socrates does is he walks up to the brand new Sports Illustrated swimsuit model calendar. The one with the girl on the front, with not much clothes on, the half-parted lips, the seductive eyes. We're familiar with this because boys put these at our high school in their lockers. Let's be fair, if the Victoria's Secret model were to walk up to any boy at Worland High School in her underwear, the boy would just wee himself and run away. I mean, come on. Am I right about this or what? Okay, let's just say what it is. These boys, right, if a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model walked up to any boy in our high school and said, where are we going now? The boy would just waddle away, peeing himself in nervous fear. You see, we know that's true. But nonetheless, this is where Socrates goes and he says, I want you to look at this woman for a little bit. And of course, all of the guys like to do that. And he says, here's the thing about that beautiful woman. And here at this point, he writes down in the first box the word beautiful body, right? Now, of course, if you're a young lady and you're into somebody like Brad Pitt or something, you can obviously put that in your mind. Some stunningly handsome guy, you see. Okay. Socrates says the following about this beautiful girl. He says, hey, check this out. As beautiful as that Sports Illustrated swimsuit model is, and she's stunning, but as beautiful as she is, do you realize, he says to his students, do you realize that at some point in the future, coming pretty quickly actually, people are going to pay her money to keep her clothes on? Keep them on. She's going to step out at some point in the future next to a pool, and she's going to take off that robe, and everybody there is going to go, whoa, 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 babe, just put the robe back on. Nobody wants to see that anymore. When you were a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model, that was a long time ago, and now you have that thingy. Do you know that thingy? This thingy right here. My Ash, when she used to go to church, she always wanted to touch it. The old ladies had this thingy that hangs down, and Ash was always just like, Dad, I just want to touch it once. Because when they hold up their arm, you can actually see through. It's translucent. You can see the light. And it's here, right here as well. This thingy. What do we say about that? Sooner or later, no matter how many surgeries, everything sags and bags. And it's what my Ash used to say to her grandma when she saw a picture of her grandma when she was young, and she said, Grandma, when you were young, you were hot. Which is, of course, my Ash didn't understand. She was really saying, back then you were good looking, now you're just ugly. Thanks a lot to say to a grandma, right? But don't we understand this? But here's the interesting thing. Stay with me. Even though there will come a point when that Sports Illustrated swimsuit model, if she lives long enough, everything sags and bags. Ain't nobody going to want to see that anymore. But there will still be, in the future, other Sports Illustrated swimsuit models. Follow this. While the beautiful body will go away, there seems to be this thing that perpetuates called beauty, which is quite fascinating. It'll be a new Sports Illustrated swimsuit model, no doubt, but the idea of beauty will still exist in the future. In other words, it's not like that beautiful Sports Illustrated swimsuit model will finally get so ugly that everybody on the planet will go, well, she got ugly, and so I guess that means there's no more beauty in the world. No. Let me give you another example. A student walked into me and said, Mr. McGee, I don't believe in God. And I went, okay. And he said, don't you want to know why? And I went, okay. And he went like this. And I went, God is a table? And he was like, no. When you can do that for me with God, I'll believe in God. Until then, I don't believe in God. Answer that. He was our top math student. And I said, okay. And I came to the whiteboard. And I said, but here's my question for you. What is this? And he went, dude, I'm being serious. He was our top math student. I'm being serious. I said, so am I. What is that? He goes, everyone knows what that is. That's the number 2. And I went, is it? And he was like, well, are you on drugs or something? I'm like, no, follow me. Is that a number 2? Because if you'll think about it, that could mean 2. Right? Am I right? And if we really wanted to screw with a bunch of 3rd graders, that could be a 2. I looked back at him and said, dude, that is just a symbol for a concept we call... And then I went like this. Where's 2? Can you imagine a bunch of 5th graders saying this to their math teacher? We're not going to do any more math until you can show us where the number 2 is. Show it to us. Don't show me 2 things. That ain't the number 2. I want to touch the number 2. Oh, well, no, you don't understand. You don't really. I mean, you can't. Oh, so it doesn't exist. No, it exists. You just can't. Where is it then if it exists? I can do this with you as juniors because now you're juniors. When you were freshmen, this was harder. I can say this to you. There is a huge difference between the exchange of fluids and this thing. See, I can say this to juniors and they go, yeah, you're right. See, freshmen, they don't get it yet. They're too young and stupid. There is a huge difference. Would you agree? Between the exchange of fluids and this thing we call love. They're not even in the same universe. Let's just say it out loud. They're not even in close to the same universe, right? Huge difference between these 2 things. See, this right here, you can have some sense. By the way, everything in the first box of or related to the 5 senses, right? But I want to touch love. Oh, no, you don't understand. You can't touch it. So it doesn't exist. No. How about this one? Ruthie's tree. She put it out there in the courtyard, right? We can look at it. We can see it, touch, taste it. We won't go any further, right? Okay. But here's the thing that's really interesting about Ruthie's tree. How did it know to look like that? As opposed to a Christmas tree. Why doesn't it look like a Christmas tree? Because it's not a Christmas tree. How did it know, though, to grow to look like that? When did it get that instruction? When did Ruthie's tree go to school to learn how to grow up? Oh, wait. When did you teach your body how to grow up? Wait a minute. That's kind of freaky. Think about this. Ruthie's tree is something we can see, touch, taste. But let's be clear about this. Ruthie's tree is really this thing we'll call nature with a capital N, or we'll call it energy, won't we? Right? Where is that? I want to touch the energy of Ruthie's tree. No, you don't understand. That tree is energy, but I want to touch it. No, you don't understand.
No.
How about this one? A few years ago, Powell came to me and said, hey, we got this group of addicts. We need you to help them. I do this kind of work sometimes when I leave Orland. These are heroin addicts. And I said, well, okay, it's the summertime. I said, all right, I can do this work, but I have an obligation to my Ashley, my first daughter. We go to the park every day. And she was 2. And that's the rules. So if you want your guys to meet me, they got to meet me at the park. So we're all sitting at the park. And my Ash is over there playing, and we're talking together. And I say to these group of addicts, these heroin addicts, I say to them, hey, you guys, I got an observation that I think might blow your mind. And they say, what is it? I said, here's the thing for me. I don't think that we really actually like drugs at all. And one of them laughed and say, did you not get the memo? We're all heroin addicts, dude. Clearly it's the only thing in our world. And I say, no, I don't think so. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure we don't even want drugs. Now they're really laughing. You're right. I mean, the reason we're here as court ordered is because that's all we want. And I'm like, I don't think so at all. I don't think so at all. Which led one of them to obviously say, dude, if heroin isn't what we want, which we're all pretty clear that's what we want, what is it that we want? And you know how the universe sometimes conspires to give you exactly what you need in a single moment? Right over their shoulder, out in the park grass, there was my 2-year-old Ashley. And you know how children can do this, where they just put their arms out, and she was running, right? Her little piggy tails, wingle, 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 right? And I look, and I say, guys, I'm pretty sure this isn't what we want. What we want is this. We want freedom. We want what my Ashley has right there. The total freedom, feeling of total carefree. That's what we want. We think, are you ready for this? We think that will give us that. But of course, anybody that's tried that knows it never works. You can feel this for a little bit and then it goes away. Give me that. Give me peace. Give me joy. I want to touch joy. No. You don't understand. It's not the way it works. Now let's point out something and I'm ready to finish. In the history of thought, Socrates says something really profound for Ralph Waldo Emerson. He says this: most humans live their lives thinking this stuff is actually real. It's not that a beautiful Sports Illustrated swimsuit model doesn't exist. It's that it's not real. Her beauty isn't real. It goes away. Sooner or later, everything sags and bags. It's the way it is, no matter how many surgeries. Sooner or later, right? But there are some people, are you watching my whiteboard? There are some people who figure it out. You can transcend. That is to say, go beyond. And there's another view that's way, way more important. Way more important. By the way, that famous question, how will I know when I found the person I'm really in love with? Socrates actually answers this in a famous dialogue. Plato answers it in a famous dialogue called Symposium. His answer is pretty simple. He says, watch my whiteboard. If you spend all your time looking for this, you will never find true love. But if you find another individual who recognizes there is something beyond the physical. By the way, the word beyond has a prefix. It's called meta. The metaphysical. That which is beyond the first box. You find somebody that shares that search in common with you, you'll find somebody with whom you can share a life. And it will last. It will actually last. You find somebody who's only interested in this. Oh, he's so good looking. Oh, yeah. Come back in 50 years. Let's take a look at what he looks like then. Oh, yeah. Why do we know that? Because everything sags and bags. It all goes away. Nothing lasts in that first box. It's not that it doesn't, it's not that it's not real. It's not real enough. That's the key word for Socrates. It's not real enough. It's not real enough to build your life on it. American transcendentalists, now to finish our lecture, American transcendentalists come to this idea, Emerson and especially, and he will say, this is it. This is the heart of what really matters. To spend time trying to understand this, that's the goal. And so he starts writing essays. One of his most famous essays is self-reliance. Because think about this. There's actually two Armstrongs. There's this thing we'll call the body. But if while I'm giving this lecture I would have fallen down dead after being shocked about that, you would say, oh, the old man is gone. But what if my corpse could talk, other than freak you out? Think about this, though. What if my corpse could talk? It would say, I'm not gone. Everything that was here before is still here. My body, my blood. Now, granted, over a few days it'll start to decay. But at the moment of my death, you would say, uh-oh, he's gone. What if my corpse could talk? It would say, I'm not gone. I'm here. See, your language betrays you. Right? There is something other than body. What is it that goes at the moment? Well, of course, we know it's energy, isn't it? We can give it words, spirit, soul. Those are the ancient words we give to this thing, this concept, right? That we will call the really second important half. Emerson will make an observation that while the body is important, that soul or that spirit's way more important. Okay? Individuals who transcend the first box we call then transcendentalists. Although in your notes make this observation, Emerson didn't like the term transcendentalist. He liked the term idealist. Individuals that are interested in ideas. Watch how you spend all your time thinking about bodies instead of spirit. As you leave this room in a little bit and get ready to go to lunch, play a game. Emerson loves this game. Don't look at their body. Look at their eyes. Don't look at their body. Look at their eyes. And in the moment you see those eyes, and only those eyes, you'll be reminded there's something more important than that person's body. It's that person's energy. That person's life force. That's way more important, and therefore should be respected, regardless of what the body looks like. What an interesting idea. An idea like this could lead to a certain kind of optimism that we will ultimately call American optimism. That is American transcendentalism. Now we'll begin by asking you to be exposed to first Emerson, then Thoreau, and then ultimately the poetry of the great Walt Whitman. Thank you. Enjoy looking at eyes instead of bodies.